The cold never bothered me much. 40 years working on oil rigs in Alberta taught me that. But standing on the deck of my son's rented ski lodge in Whistler, watching the snow fall on what should have been the happiest day of our lives, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Connor's fiancée, Ashley, had just cornered me near the hot tub, champagne flute in one hand, her phone in the other. Her smile was perfect. Too perfect. The kind of smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. "Robert," she said. And I noticed she never called me Bob like everyone else did. "We need to talk. Privately." I'd known something was off about this woman since Connor brought her home 6 months ago. My late wife, Margaret, God rest her soul, she would have seen through Ashley in 5 minutes. But Margaret had been gone 3 years, and Connor was still grieving, still vulnerable. Ashley had found him at exactly the right moment. "What's on your mind, Ashley?" I asked, keeping my voice level. She glanced back at the lodge where 80 guests were celebrating their engagement. Our family, our friends, Connor's colleagues from his tech company in Vancouver, all of them toasting to a future I was about to watch crumble. "I know about the trust fund," she said simply. "The one Margaret left for Connor. $2.3 million. Accessible when he turns 30 or gets married, whichever comes first." My blood ran cold, but I kept my face neutral. That information wasn't public. Connor knew, obviously. My lawyer knew, and I'd told Connor never to discuss it with anyone until he was ready to access it. "I also know," she continued, her voice dropping to a whisper, "that you control the trustee's decision. You can release it early. You can block it entirely if you deem the marriage financially irresponsible." She'd done her homework. I had to give her that. "Here's what's going to happen, Bob." The nickname sounded wrong in her mouth. "You're going to recommend immediate release of those funds. Then you're going to transfer $500,000 to my business account as a wedding gift. It's for my wellness coaching empire. Connor believes in my vision. And if I don't?" I asked quietly. Her smile widened. "Then I'll make sure Connor knows exactly what kind of father you really are. The controlling, manipulative kind, who can't stand to see his son happy, who drove his own wife to an early grave with constant pressure and criticism." She paused. "I've been documenting everything, Robert. Every time you've questioned our relationship, every concerned comment, every time you've made me feel unwelcome in this family. Emotional abuse is very real and very prosecutable in family court. We're not married yet," I pointed out, "but we will be. And when Connor sees how you've treated me, how you've tried to sabotage our love from day one, he'll cut you out of his life completely. No grandfathers at our children's birthdays. No Christmas dinners. Nothing." She took a sip of her champagne. "Or, you can write the check, smile for the wedding photos, and we all live happily ever after. Your choice." I looked at this woman, really looked at her. 27 years old, absolutely stunning, with a following of 200,000 on Instagram, where she posted about manifesting abundance and divine feminine energy. Connor had shown me her account proudly, not realizing that every photo was carefully staged, every caption calculated. "I need to think about it," I said finally. "You have until tomorrow morning," she replied. "We're announcing our wedding date at brunch, June 15th, 3 months from now. Plenty of time for you to liquidate whatever you need to liquidate." She walked away, her designer snow boots crunching on the deck, leaving me alone with the mountains and my racing thoughts. I'd built my entire career on solving problems. When an oil rig had a mechanical failure at minus 40 degrees, you didn't panic. You assessed, you planned, you executed. This was no different. Except this time, the most important thing in my life was at stake. My son. That night, after the party wound down and most guests had retired to their rooms, I sat in front of the fireplace in my suite and pulled out my phone. I scrolled through Ashley's Instagram, this time not as a proud future father-in-law, but as an investigator. The photos went back 2 years. Before that, nothing. Her account had been created exactly 26 months ago. For someone who claimed to have been a wellness coach since college, that seemed odd. I looked at her followers, lots of young women, sure, but also a suspicious number of accounts that looked fake. Generic usernames, no posts, no profile pictures. You could buy followers. I knew that much. Her posts about her coaching business were vague. No client testimonials with real names. No verifiable success stories. Just generic posts about transforming lives and abundance mindset. But it was the photos that really caught my attention. That Gucci bag in the Vancouver Harbor shot? I'd seen that exact bag in a rental advertisement online, the sports car she posed with in front of a West Vancouver mansion. A 2-hour, exotic car rental experience, advertised on Groupon. Even the her apartment photos seemed off. Different lighting, different layouts, like she was shooting in various Airbnbs. My phone buzzed. A text from my old friend, Dave Patterson. Dave and I had worked together in Fort McMurray before he retired and moved to Toronto. Bob saw Connor's engagement announcement on Facebook. Congrats, but I gotta ask, you looked into this girl's background? Something about her seemed familiar. I called him immediately. What do you mean, familiar? I asked. I can't put my finger on it, Dave said, but I swear I've seen her before. Maybe in the news or something. Different hair color, maybe? We talked for another 20 minutes, but Dave couldn't remember where he'd seen her. Still, it nagged at me. The next morning, I skipped the brunch. I told Connor I wasn't feeling well, which wasn't entirely a lie. My stomach had been in knots since Ashley's threat. Instead, I drove down the mountain to a small coffee shop in Squamish and called my lawyer, Patricia Chen. Patricia had handled Margaret's estate and had been a friend of our family for 30 years. Patricia, I need you to do something for me, and I need you to do it quietly, I said. I need a complete background check on someone named Ashley Beaumont, born around 1998, currently lives in Vancouver. Robert, is this about Connor's fiancée? Patricia asked gently. Because if you're having cold feet about the wedding, it's not cold feet, I interrupted. She threatened me last night. She wants $500,000 in access to Connor's trust fund, or she'll accuse me of emotional abuse and turn my son against me. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, I'll have something for you by Monday. Don't do anything until you hear from me. The weekend dragged on. I played the doting father-in-law, smiled for photos, pretended to be excited about wedding plans. Connor was radiant. He truly loved this woman, or at least, he loved who he thought she was. Ashley barely looked at me. When she did, there was a knowing smile on her face. She thought she'd won. Monday morning, Patricia called. Robert, you need to sit down for this, she said. Her voice was tight, professional. Ashley Beaumont isn't her real name. Or rather, it is now. But it wasn't always. She legally changed it 18 months ago. Her birth name was Ashley Morrison. Okay, I said slowly. That's not necessarily suspicious. People change their names. She changed it right after being named in a lawsuit in Ontario, Patricia continued. A man named David Thornton sued her for fraud. He alleged that she entered into a relationship with him, convinced him to invest $200,000 in her business, then disappeared with the money. The case was settled out of court. My hand gripped the phone tighter. There's more, Patricia said. I found 2 other similar situations, different provinces, different names she was using. Same pattern. Targets men with money, usually men who've recently lost a spouse or gone through a divorce, promises them love and a business partnership, takes the money, and runs. How did she avoid criminal charges? I asked. Smart lawyers and settlements with NDAs, Patricia replied. The men were embarrassed. They signed agreements not to discuss it publicly, but I have a contact who was able to get me copies of the civil filings before they were sealed. Robert, this woman is a professional con artist. I felt sick. Does Connor know any of this? I doubt it. She's covered her tracks well. The name change, scrubbing her old social media, creating a new identity. If I hadn't known to look for lawsuits filed against her old name, I never would have found it. Send me everything you have, I said. And Patricia, can you find contact information for any of those men? I need to talk to them. By Wednesday, I had phone numbers for 2 of Ashley's previous victims. The third had moved overseas and couldn't be reached. The first call was with Marcus Chen, a widower from Calgary who'd lost his wife to cancer. He was 61, close to my age. His voice shook when I told him why I was calling. "I don't like talking about this," he said. "I signed an agreement. My son is about to marry her," I replied. "Please, I'm not recording this. I'm not going to use your name. I just need to know the truth." There was a long pause. Then, she found me at a grief support group, 3 months after my wife died. She said she'd lost her parents young, understood what I was going through. We started dating. She was kind, supportive, everything I needed at that moment. The story was painfully familiar. Ashley had targeted him when he was vulnerable, love-bombed him, then slowly started talking about her business dreams. She needed capital, just a loan. They were partners now, weren't they? $250,000 later, she vanished. "I tried to report it to the police," Marcus said, "but she'd been careful. Everything was technically a gift or a loan between romantic partners. No criminal fraud. My lawyer said civil court was my only option, and even then, we settled because she threatened to drag my reputation through the mud. Said I'd been inappropriate with her, that the money was compensation for what I'd done." "What you'd done?" I asked. "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But she had screenshots of text conversations taken out of context, photos that made it look like I was obsessed with her. She was going to post them online, ruin my business. I owned a construction company. I couldn't afford that kind of publicity." His voice cracked. "I paid her to go away and stay away, and I've been ashamed ever since." The second call, with James Whitmore from Winnipeg, was eerily similar. Different details, same playbook. She found vulnerable men, made them fall in love, extracted money, then disappeared or forced a settlement when they pushed back. Armed with this information, I now faced an impossible choice. If I told Connor the truth, would he even believe me? Ashley had spent 6 months building his trust, presenting herself as the perfect partner. She'd probably anticipated that I might investigate her, which is why she'd preemptively framed me as controlling and manipulative. If I showed Connor the court documents, she'd claim they were fabricated. If I put him in touch with her victims, she'd say they were bitter exes, or that I'd paid them to lie. She'd turn it all around, make herself the victim of my harassment. And she still had her nuclear option, turning Connor against me completely. I needed to be smarter than this. I needed her to expose herself. That Thursday, I texted Ashley and asked to meet for coffee. Just the two of us. I suggested a small cafe in Kitsilano, public but not crowded. She showed up 15 minutes late, wearing yoga pants and an expensive jacket, looking like she'd just come from a workout. Which, according to her Instagram story from that morning, she had. "Robert," she said, sitting down across from me. "I'm glad you reached out. I was hoping we could clear the air." "I've thought about your proposal," I said carefully. "The 500,000, the trust fund." Her eyes lit up, just slightly. "And? I need to understand something first," I said. "This wellness business of yours. Walk me through it. How does it work? What's the revenue model?" For the next 20 minutes, she talked. And the more she talked, the more obvious it became that she had no real business. It was all buzzwords and vague promises, transformational coaching packages, high-ticket masterminds, abundance activations. When I pressed for specifics, for client contracts, for financial projections, she got defensive. "You don't understand the wellness industry," she said. "It's not like your oil and gas world. It's about energy and vibration." "Energy doesn't pay bills," I replied. "If I'm investing $500,000, I need to see a business plan, revenue streams, client retention rates, something concrete." She leaned back, her eyes narrowing. "Connor said you'd do this. Try to control everything with your questions and your demands." "Connor knows I'm meeting with you?" I asked. "Of course. We don't keep secrets," she smiled. "He thought it was sweet that you wanted to understand my business better. He doesn't know about our other arrangement, though, about the deadline, which was yesterday morning," I pointed out. "I'm giving you an extension," she said generously, "because I can see you're trying. But Robert, let me be clear. This is happening. Connor and I are getting married. The money is coming. The only question is whether you want to be part of our lives going forward or not." I took a sip of my coffee, letting the moment hang. Then I pulled out my phone and set it on the table between us. "Ashley, I need you to be honest with me about something," I said quietly. "Is that even your real name?" The change in her expression was subtle but unmistakable. A flicker of panic, quickly suppressed. "What kind of question is that?" she asked, but her voice had lost its confidence. "Because I spoke to Marcus Chen this week," I continued, "and James Whitmore. They both told me very interesting stories about a woman who looks exactly like you. Different hair color, but same face, same playbook." She stood up abruptly. "I don't know who those people are." "Yes, you do. You sued them. Or rather, they sued you, and you settled. Those were frivolous lawsuits," she hissed, her voice low. "Bitter men who couldn't handle rejection. 2 different provinces, Ashley. 3 if we count David Thornton. All the same pattern. Find a vulnerable man, promise him love and partnership, take his money, disappear, then legally threaten him into silence." People at nearby tables were starting to glance over. Ashley noticed. She sat back down, composing herself. "You can't prove any of that," she said quietly. "Those cases were sealed. I don't need to prove it to a court," I replied. "I just need to tell Connor. Show him the court filings. Put him on the phone with Marcus or James. Let him hear their stories." "He won't believe you," she said, but I could hear the uncertainty now. "He'll think you fabricated everything because you can't stand to see him happy." "Maybe," I acknowledged. "Or maybe he'll start asking questions. Maybe he'll wonder why you changed your name 18 months ago. Why your business has no actual clients. Why you've been so eager to rush this wedding." Her hands were shaking slightly. She clasped them together on the table. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "I want you to leave," I said simply. "Today. Disappear from Connor's life. I won't press charges. I won't tell him the full truth. I'll just say that you two weren't compatible and you decided to move on. I'll even be the bad guy. Tell him I forced you out if that makes it easier. And if I don't? Then I tell him everything. I show him the documents. I fly Marcus Chen here to Vancouver to tell his story in person if I have to. And Ashley, even if Connor doesn't believe me at first, the seeds of doubt will be planted. He'll start noticing things, the inconsistencies in your stories, the lack of real substance to your business, how quickly you push for financial commitments." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "You really think you've won, don't you?" she said. "Fine, let's play this out. You tell Connor everything. Maybe he believes you, maybe he doesn't. But either way, you've destroyed his trust. In me, sure, but also in his own judgment, in his ability to find love after losing his mother. You'll have saved him from me, but you'll have broken something in him that might never heal." The words hit harder than I expected, because there was truth in them. "Or," she continued, leaning forward, "we can make a different deal, a real one. You release some of the trust fund, not all of it, just enough for Connor and me to start our life together. Say, 200,000. I use it to actually build a legitimate business, something Connor can be proud of. We get married, we have a life, and everyone gets what they want. Except you're still a con artist," I said. "I'm a survivor," she corrected. "I've done what I had to do to get by. But Robert, I do care about Connor. Maybe not in the way you want me to, but I'm not going to hurt him. I just need financial security. That's all this has ever been about." I looked at this woman, this stranger who'd almost destroyed my family, and I felt something unexpected. Pity. Not enough to trust her, not even close, but enough to understand that somewhere along the way, she'd convinced herself this was normal. "No deal," I said firmly. "You leave, or I tell Connor everything. Those are your only options." She stood up again, grabbing her designer purse. "You're making a mistake. Connor will hate you for this." "Maybe," I said. "But at least he'll be safe." She left, without another word. I sat there for a long time after she was gone, finishing my coffee, trying to prepare myself for what came next. Because Ashley was right about one thing. Telling Connor the truth was going to hurt him, badly. That evening, I drove to Connor's apartment in Yaletown. He lived in one of those glass towers overlooking False Creek, a beautiful place he'd worked hard to afford. Margaret would have been so proud of the man he'd become. I knocked on his door, rehearsing what I was going to say. But when he opened it, I saw immediately that I was too late for rehearsal. Ashley was there, sitting on his couch, her eyes red from crying. "Dad," Connor said, and his voice was cold. "Ashley told me about your meeting, about how you threatened her." "Connor, let me explain. She said you've been investigating her like some kind of criminal," he continued, "that you hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on her, that you called her exes and fabricated stories about her being a con artist." I looked at Ashley. She wasn't meeting my eyes. She'd beaten me here, spun her version first. "It's not fabricated," I said carefully. "Connor, I have court documents, legal filings. Her name used to be Ashley Morrison. She changed it after being sued for fraud." "She explained that," Connor said. "She had a bad relationship with a controlling man who sued her when she left him. She changed her name to escape the harassment, and now you're doing the same thing to her." The way he looked at me, with such disappointment, such anger, it felt like a knife to the chest. "Son, please, let me show you the evidence. Multiple men, multiple lawsuits, all with the same." "Get out," Connor said quietly. "Connor, get out of my apartment, Dad. I don't want to hear any more of your conspiracy theories. Ashley and I are getting married, and you're not invited. Not unless you apologize to her and admit what you've done." Ashley stood up, moving to Connor's side. She placed a hand on his arm, playing the wounded victim perfectly. "Robert, I think you should go," she said softly. "You've done enough damage." I looked at my son, this boy I'd raised, this man I loved more than anything in the world, and I saw that I'd lost him. At least for now. "I love you, Connor," I said. "Everything I've done is because I love you." "You have a funny way of showing it," he replied. I left, my hands shaking as I drove back to my condo in Cole Harbor. I'd prepared for Ashley to fight back, but I hadn't prepared for this, for the complete conviction in Connor's eyes that I was the villain in this story. Over the next 3 weeks, I tried everything. I sent Connor emails with PDF copies of the court documents. He blocked my email. I tried to call. He didn't answer. I reached out to his friends, asking them to talk to him. They said Connor had told them his father was having a mental health crisis and to please give him space. Ashley had won. She'd isolated Connor completely, turned him against me, and positioned herself as his protector against my harassment. But I hadn't given up. I couldn't. I flew Marcus Chen to Vancouver. I paid for his hotel, his expenses, everything. I explained the situation, and to his credit, Marcus agreed to help despite the personal cost. "That woman destroyed a year of my life," he said. "If I can prevent the same thing happening to your son, I'll do it." The challenge was getting Connor to listen. He wouldn't meet with me, wouldn't take my calls, so I did something desperate. Connor had a weekly basketball game with his friends at the community center in Kitsilano. Every Thursday night, 6-on-6 pickup games. I knew this because before all of this, he used to invite me to watch sometimes. I waited in the parking lot until the game was over. When Connor came out with his gym bag, laughing with his friends, I stepped into his path. "Connor, please, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." His face hardened. "I told you, this man flew here from Calgary to talk to you," I said, gesturing to Marcus, who stood nearby. "His name is Marcus Chen. Ashley defrauded him of $200,000 3 years ago. She used the same playbook she's using on you. Please, just listen to his story." Connor looked at Marcus, then back at me. "Dad, this is insane. You hired an actor to—" "I'm not an actor," Marcus said quietly. "I'm a retired contractor from Calgary. Your father found me because I sued Ashley Morrison, which is your fiancé's former name, in civil court. I can prove everything I'm saying." Connor's friends had stopped, watching this scene unfold. The embarrassment on my son's face was painful to see. "Connor, I have bank statements," Marcus continued, pulling out a folder. "Text messages, photos, everything documented. I can show you the exact pattern. How she found me at a grief support group. How she targeted my vulnerability after losing my wife. How she slowly convinced me to invest in her business. And when I finally realized what was happening and confronted her, how she threatened to destroy my reputation if I didn't pay her to go away. "This is harassment," Connor said, but his voice wavered slightly. "It's the truth," Marcus replied. "And son, I know you don't know me, but I'm a father too. I have 2 daughters. If they were in danger, I'd do whatever it took to protect them. That's all your dad is trying to do." One of Connor's friends, a guy named Jason, whom I'd met a few times, spoke up. "Connor, man, maybe you should at least look at what he's showing you." Connor's jaw clenched. Then, slowly, he took the folder from Marcus. We stood there in the parking lot for 20 minutes while Connor read through bank statements, text messages, court filings. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. "When did you say this happened?" Connor asked Marcus quietly. "Started in January 3 years ago, ended that August when I finally accepted what was happening," Marcus replied. Connor pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. "Ashley told me she was in Europe that whole year, modeling and doing yoga teacher training. She was in Calgary," Marcus said gently. "With me, until she wasn't." Connor looked at me, and I saw it. The moment of doubt. The crack in Ashley's carefully constructed facade. "I need to go home," he said, his voice shaky. "I need to think." "Connor," I started. "Alone, Dad. I need to think alone." I watched him drive away, not knowing if I'd made things better or worse. That night, around 11 p.m., my phone rang. It was Connor. "She's gone," he said without preamble. I confronted her about the Calgary thing, about Marcus. She denied everything at first, said Marcus was lying. But then I asked her specific questions, about dates, about places she'd told me she was. And Dad, the lies just kept coming. Different versions of the same story. Contradictions. "Where is she now?" I asked. "I don't know." She grabbed her stuff and left. Said I was just like all the others, paranoid and controlling. That she deserved better. His voice cracked. "Dad, I almost married her. I almost gave her access to Mom's trust fund. I was so stupid." "You weren't stupid," I said firmly. "You were grieving and lonely, and she's a professional. She knew exactly how to target those feelings." "How did you know?" he asked. "From the beginning, you knew something was wrong." I thought about how to answer that. "Honestly, son, I didn't know. Not for certain. I just felt it. Something about her was too perfect, too curated. And when she threatened me that night in Whistler, I knew I had to dig deeper." "She threatened you?" Connor asked. "With what?" So I told him. Everything. The demand for money. The threats to turn him against me. The investigation. The other victims. All of it. When I finished, there was a long silence. "I owe you an apology," Connor said finally. "A massive one. These past 3 weeks, the things I said to you, the way I shut you out." "You were protecting someone you loved," I interrupted. "There's no shame in that. I would have done the same thing at your age." "Can I come over?" he asked. "I don't want to be alone right now." "Of course." An hour later, Connor was sitting on my couch, drinking tea, looking exhausted and broken. We talked until 3 a.m. about everything. About Ashley. About Margaret. About grief and vulnerability and how easy it is to be manipulated when you're hurting. "Mom would have seen through her immediately," Connor said at one point. "Your mother was special that way," I agreed. "She had a gift for reading people." "I miss her so much, Dad," Connor said, and then he was crying, really crying, for the first time since the funeral. Not just about Ashley, but about Margaret, about 3 years of grief he'd been holding in, trying to be strong. I held my son while he cried, and I thought about how close I'd come to losing him. Not to death, but to something almost worse. To a predator who'd seen his pain and tried to profit from it. 3 days later, Patricia called with an update. "Ashley Beaumont, or Morrison, or whatever her real name is, has left the province," she said. "I have a contact at the RCMP who's been tracking her movements after Connor filed a report. She's in Ontario now, likely scouting for her next target." "Can they arrest her?" I asked. "For what?" "She didn't actually steal anything this time," Connor didn't give her money. Everything she did was technically legal, just morally reprehensible. So she gets away with it, I said bitterly. Unless someone builds a strong enough case to press criminal charges. Yes, Patricia said. But Robert, here's what I can do. I've been in contact with the lawyers for her previous victims. If we can get them to coordinate, to share evidence and testimony, we might be able to establish a pattern of fraud that crosses provincial lines. Make it a federal case. Do it, I said. Whatever it takes. I don't know if anything will come of the legal pursuit. Patricia is still working on it, coordinating with victims across Canada, building a case. But that's not really what matters to me anymore. What matters is that Connor is okay. We're okay. It took a few months, but he's healing. He started seeing a therapist to work through the trauma of being manipulated like that. He's dating again, slowly, carefully, and he calls me every Sunday now, just to talk. Last week, he told me he'd run into one of Ashley's Instagram followers, a girl named Megan who'd been taking her coaching classes. She had no idea, Connor said. Thought Ashley was this successful entrepreneur. I showed her some of the evidence, told her what really happened. She was horrified. Did she believe you? I asked. Eventually. But Dad, here's the thing. There were 200,000 people following Ashley. How many of them are still believing her lies? How many young women are looking at her Instagram, seeing that fake life, and thinking that's what success looks like? It was a good question. One I didn't have an answer for. Connor started a blog about his experience, nothing identifying Ashley directly because of legal concerns, but talking about the red flags, the manipulation tactics, the way predators target vulnerable people. It's gotten some traction, particularly among young men who've experienced similar situations. Me? I'm just glad to have my son back. Sometimes I think about that night on the ski lodge deck in Whistler, when Ashley first made her threat. How different things could have gone. If I'd been less suspicious, less willing to dig, if I'd just accepted her at face value the way Connor initially did. But I didn't. Because 40 years on oil rigs taught me that when something feels wrong, you investigate. You don't ignore the warning signs just because they're inconvenient. Connor's mother, Margaret, she used to say that love and wisdom had to go hand in hand, that loving someone meant being clear-eyed about them, seeing them fully, flaws and all, not putting them on a pedestal where they'd inevitably fall. I think about that a lot now, about how Connor loved the idea of Ashley, the performance she put on, but he didn't really know her, couldn't have, because she never showed him the truth. Real love, the kind Margaret and I had, the kind I hope Connor finds someday, that requires honesty, vulnerability, the courage to be fully known. Ashley didn't have that courage. Maybe she never learned how. Maybe somewhere in her past, she was hurt badly enough that this became her survival mechanism. Perform, extract, disappear. I don't forgive her. But I think I understand her a little better now. And understanding, Margaret always said, was the first step toward wisdom. Connor's going to be okay. It might take time, but he's strong. He has people who love him, really love him. Not for his money or his potential usefulness, but for who he is. That's what family means. Not perfection. Not even unconditional acceptance of everything someone does. Family means loving someone enough to tell them the truth, even when it's hard. Even when they don't want to hear it. Even when it might cost you everything. I'd do it all again in a heartbeat.